I believe people have the freedom to live the life they want.
Yeah.
But with information and informed and at an age where you're not going to regret it.
Welcome, everybody, to the Not For Nothing podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo Christopher Michael and Ashley Maland, where they delve into life, love, relationships, and personal growth. Be sure to tune in every week for a refreshing take on life's most important lessons.
So I have a real issue, right? This is a big one for me. I hate fake. I don't hate the person, obviously.
Right.
I just really, really dislike
the action.
fake.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he knows this. Like, again, I know why you're being fake. I see it. That's fine. But I always pick up on it.
Yeah.
Like, whereas you don't pick up on it as much. Where I'm like, and again, I still love you. I'm not ever going to be mean to
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk bad about you. You know, I might say to him that person's fake.
Yeah.
Right.
To the point where, like, if someone's a jerk, if they're truly a jerk,
Right.
I may respect that they're truly a jerk more so than the person that fakes
That fakes it.
personality.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I agree.
So I've always had, and that's been a thing with us. You know, like I ran our numbers recently for our TikTok and
For analytics.
like the hype auditor and whatnot, where they basically give you the industry price of your rankings globally, your rankings nationally, and then what your videos are worth dependent upon the time. And the reason why I originally got it was not to run ourselves, was because so I am the marketing director of a shopping plaza in Connecticut. That's one of my clients, but I spend a good chunk with them, a good chunk of time. My office is there and whatnot. And I wanted to start incorporating influencers because obviously, as you know, even being in a podcast, like, influencers are the way of marketing these days. Local's great and nano's great, especially for, big ones are of course great, but they're pricey.
Right.
But especially for, business, because now in the old days was TV commercials and billboards and all these things. Now I'd rather just have the girls go out and go shopping and then, post it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I paid for software to run things. And I was reaching out to local people, and some of them at the time may not have had huge followings, but they had decent ones for local. And they just made good content, right?
Yeah.
They did a good job. So I would reach out, and then when I would get their prices, I would be like, what? And I would say that not being mean, like, good for you, because you know what? You're valuing yourself really high, and that's great.
Yes, there is something to be said for that.
And I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, we live in a capitalistic country and I love it. So I'm not against that. But you're also sending those prices to people or to someone that has 1.5 million followers on TikTok and who's gotten paid for brand deals before. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
So you know.
Right. So again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Shoot your shot. But I was expecting like a little negotiation. Like
Right.
when I went back and said, okay, well, how about this with the immediate like shutdown or like, again, just, it was crazy. So I started using the software, and honestly, there's people that may not be, their content may be only worth $20, and I value them more than that because they make great content. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But since we had it, I said to him, I'm like, well, let's run our pages and see, like our YouTube, our TikToker. And I looked at it and I looked at him and I was like, we must be the stupidest people on planet Earth. Like, truly, I called him from my office and I was like, we are so dumb. And he's like, why? And I said, because I ran our numbers and the money that we could be making. But like he used to say, let's take it. Like a brand would send us something and it would be like $3,000 for this. And he's like, let's take it. And I'm like, no, because that's fake. Yeah. Like if it goes with what we do, then we could do it. Yeah. But I'm not like, hey, check out this shirt. Hey, check out my, that's not me. Like it's just not who I am. But I looked at it and you go on TikTok, and I think because we see so many people with large followings that I just think there are so many. Mm-hmm. But you go on TikTok and it's like, whoa, we're ranked 125.
Yeah, that's
in
great.
the nation for love and humor. Like to me, that's like, what? And it's like, yeah, you know, for a 30-day post where it stays up for 30 days, it's worth $3,000. And if you leave it up indefinitely, it's worth $6,000. Then you go to YouTube and it's like for 30 days, right? If we did a video, it's worth $5,000. Forever, it's worth $12,000.
Yeah, YouTube pays a lot.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, granted, again, I'm still not fake. So if it didn't go along, like, you know, recently there was one with a lawnmower that was portable and they were to pay. I was like, well, we could do that because all of our
Because they
followers.
break our chops.
Yeah, all of our
Right.
followers talk crap about our lawn not being caught. Like that goes. Or
Yeah, it
like,
makes sense.
Whiskey companies, like that goes because if I take a shot, it's really going to make me gag. Right.
Right.
Or if I smell it. Like I smelled Louis the 13th the other night and he was so mad, but I gagged because it smells terrible. Like I don't like liquor. Things that are within who we are and make sense, fine.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I was like, wow, I never realized like that we've been sitting on this for 4 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Because that's not who we are. Like we don't consider ourselves.
Yeah.
A prospective client the other night said, so are you an influencer? And I said, no. Like by right, yeah.
Right.
By right, if we
Right.
want to be sure. I said, but from the beginning, when influencer marketing first started, my dad would be like, and he's 77 years old. He knows nothing about social media, but he'd be like, you guys are influencers. Why are you not capitalizing on it? And I said, would you rather be Wilhelmina or the Wilhelmina Modeling Agency? Like, would you rather your
It's
career
true, though.
span
Yeah.
be a year, if that? Or would you rather build your marketing agency and just keep putting in effort and keep building it and make that your living? Like for me, that's the living.
Absolutely.
This is a great experience. It's fun. Maybe someday we'll turn it into more of a podcast. Maybe we'll do other things with it that are natural.
Yeah.
But the everyday thing, but you look around and you're like, wow, these people, some of them might be getting that money.
Yeah.
That really are giving higher prices. You go and run their profile and they're really industry standard. Maybe their videos are worth $100 by market standards.
By market standard, right.
But they may be making $1,000 off of it,
Right.
And it's wild to just think that we're living in a time where anyone can make money.
Yeah, but you're smart about it. See, that's what a lot of these influencers miss, I feel like, is when you really think about it, what it boils down to is there's really no true longevity in that superficial side of it, right? So you need to be smart enough to take advantage of the opportunities to capitalize on it and set yourself up for the future.
Right.
Because it could be great for you, right? Because if you take advantage of the exposure and you build something from it, then you're golden.
Right.
But when you're really just looking for that immediate, quick cash flow, that's only going to continue for so long, right? Eventually, I don't care what anybody says, these big eventually this will start to fade out.
Agreed.
It
already is. So
Yeah.
like market reports are coming out and because it's oversaturated now.
It is.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Hugely
so
oversaturated.
everybody's doing it. Everybody could do it. Even big companies, like they're looking at smaller sometimes because sometimes the smaller you are, 5,000 followers, sometimes in certain industries, especially local, the people that follow you
Are more loyal.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not saying that, listen, for big brands, of course, like you have a big following, people are going to be swayed. That's the way the world works.
Right.
But we're already at a point that it's becoming oversaturated. I can't foresee for some big people, it will continue. But for the smaller ones, it's just going to be too competitive for you to keep up. Like what's next for you then?
You missed the boat at this point.
Right.
If you-
And
It's
not
like
just
network
that.
marketing if you don't get in at the right time.
right.
Right.
Correct.
But and not just that, what's next? Like
Right.
if we built, again, and this was an accident, which makes it great, right? Because this wasn't like we had the idea of course he thought it was funny, but it's not like I had the idea of, I have a bad gag reflex. Let's like I had no clue about it. Like I walked into the dentist a month after, we had this larger following and I had a new hygienist and she's like, so you're the gagger.
So you're the
And I'm mortified, squirming in my chair. And I go,
man.
you saw it? And she goes, no. And she flips the chart. And she's like, it's written at the top of your chart.
They wrote it on the chart,
Well, 'cause
really?
my-
Well, because if
Terrible.
they put the mouth guard in and stuff, she can't do it.
I can't
so they
do it.
weren't even referencing the
No,
video.
they had no clue. They were like,
Oh, okay.
and here's me. I'm like, you saw him? She's like, saw what? Like they were clueless about it. And I'm
Right.
like, oh. And she's like, no, on it says warning gag reflex. And I'm like, oh, okay, But
The gagger.
that is one thing that gets me about
Sorry.
it's terrible. But the fakeness, like I could spot it from 3 miles away. And I said to him since the beginning, this is fine. We could do this, but I don't ever want to be fake.
No, and you shouldn't. And I'm the same way. Honestly, fake people are not to be trusted. I don't care how you look at it. And then it sucks. When you're watching someone, they're just disingenuous and they're not genuine. You sense it. Like people like you
feel it.
sense it. You feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's almost disturbing how much of it there is now, though. It's like,
It is sad.
It is.
It's funny because she is right. Like I don't pick up on it at all. Like when we came in today, like I said, I'm a big hugger. I hope you don't mind. Like, here we go.
Oh, no.
Right? I love to love, baby. You know, so it's
Yeah.
like, oh, tell me about you. And they tell me, I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, I'm like very into getting to know people and what they tell me.
Yeah.
And
he
you know, we
believes it all.
don't. So, and we when we say we don't judge people, like I'm really not there to judge you. I'm here to what you tell me, I'm going to take it at face value.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I
I'm
do
not
that all the
judging.
time.
I'm
Well,
just
like-
sensing.
Right.
Like a discernment.
I'll take her to a business meeting and I'll be like, you got to come with me. Why? She's like, I got to know if this person's full of shit.
Yeah, it
You know,
serves
because
you well.
You are the one that is going to sniff out how authentic this person is. Where I'm just going to be like, hey, let's have a great time. Let's eat, you know, let's have a beer. I don't know, whatever it is you want to do.
I think
let's do it.
it's okay to have a balance too. To like,
Right.
you know what I mean? To have the instinct to know like, probably
And
not
I still
gonna
love
like it.
you the same way.
Yeah.
I just know that maybe this isn't all true.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
Right.
yeah. I'm not sure I believe everything you're saying here, but
But it's
you know,
okay if that's who you want to
having a
be.
great time.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Listen,
if that's who you
you're
want to
fun.
be, fine. I'm never going to call you
Yeah,
out.
I'm big
right.
on the fun.
Yeah, you're a fun guy. Let's
Let's have a good time.
Have a good time. Probably not going to marry you
You're probably
Yeah.
not going to
Probably,
be my pick.
yeah.
because you know it
Like
goes
I
to
s-
that immediately.
Right.
You're fun. Do you want to marry me?
Right.
I do it.
Yeah.
No, like I said, if I had to date in 2024,
I don't anymore.
sorry, I don't know what I would do.
Oh, no, it's horrible. Take it from me. I know. It's fucking awful.
That's why I said sorry. Like,
No,
sorry.
don't be sorry. It's
But
my life.
I don't know what I would do because
Story of my life.
You would do what the rest of us are doing.
I
You
mean,
just stop dating.
The crazy thing
Probably
is, it's
would.
like there's
It's
just
all on you now, God.
things are
Yeah.
just too superficial today.
Right.
You know, and I'm
Agreed.
just my values alone, right? Just I can't even bring myself to go out on dates to a degree because I feel like everything's just so like it's always fake.
Showy.
It's showy. It's,
Yeah.
Everybody wants to, and don't get me wrong, and I hate fucking small talk. Like,
Me too.
don't get me wrong, it's fine if I'm familiar with you. We could small talk all day long.
yeah,
But when I first get to know you or meet you,
I
and
wanna
don't-
know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to know about you.
Yeah,
Same.
talk
And
to me.
everybody wants to beat around the bush and talk
hate
about
it.
It's like, dude, enough is enough. Like, I don't need to know what your dad had for fucking dinner last night.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's great. Fine. We can share that one day. But I want to know something about you.
Yeah.
You know?
Substance.
what are your interests?
Yeah,
and
like,
who are you?
You know, let's go have a dinner. Let's
Right.
not sit on fucking and DM for
Right.
the next 3
Ah.
days. It's like, come
Disgusting.
on, enough.
I hate texting.
That's why I hate dating apps. I tried to go on a dating app and I'm like, my immediate thing is let's just go grab dinner. You know, let's do
Right.
something
Right.
social
Yeah.
so
Right.
we can meet each other.
Yeah, let's
Right.
be humans.
Yeah. And so I
Mhm.
can look you in the eye when I talk to you, right? So you
Right.
can see if I'm being genuine
Right.
because everything gets lost in context through text message also.
Everything.
You don't know me. I don't know you.
Right.
So you don't know how I'm saying something through a text thread.
Right.
So let's, if we're going to do this, I'm assuming like you're on the app because you want
For
to
a
meet
reason.
someone. Yeah. So let's get past the superficial nonsense and let's get to something more than skin deep.
Right.
But nobody wants to do that today. It's
No,
always,
and the saddest part is if you approach someone, I believe, I'm just making an assumption, but
Yeah.
based on what I hear friends saying, if you approach someone, or even how I think, in a public place, they'd probably be like, who's this creep trying to hit at me?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
depends.
No, I
Because
get it.
it's, well, yeah,
If I find them good looking, I don't find it creepy. If I don't find them good looking, I'm like, ugh.
true.
where's your
There is an
problem?
element of that.
There is.
Shoot or shoot, though.
If I'm being
Shoot or
honest.
shoot.
No, yeah, and I hear you, and I
You
probably
got to
Shoot
risk
your
it for
shot.
the biscuit, baby.
Yeah.
You know,
I
sometimes
probably-
you got to do it.
believed that too when I was dating. But I guess what I'm saying is it's so foreign now for people to meet in real life.
Yeah,
It
That
is.
that
Very
like when
true.
somebody hits on you
Yeah.
out in public,
Yeah.
it's almost like people are taken back. Like,
Yeah, it's so true.
Well, it's shocking,
What?
right?
It used to be like the best place to meet someone is at the gym, but you don't meet people at gym anymore.
Oh,
do.
there you go.
Right, but you don't meet them
Right.
anymore.
No.
No
No.
one
because
talks
if
to
you went up to me at the gym, I would be like, I'm working out. You
No
must
one
be
talks
Yeah.
to you.
Right.
Right.
They don't. Period. Everyone is in their own lane. Like they just
Well, yeah, it's the weirdest thing though, because you can't get a genuine connection with anybody anymore.
Right.
It's like, and I'm not saying, and not a knock to women, but it's just, they do it a lot of the time. It's like they just, they're immediately on the defense. And I get it. There's a lot of dicks in the world, but I mean, at some
Yes, there
point
are.
you have to be willing to have a genuine conversation with
Right.
someone, and everybody today is like all about calling someone out for doing something. Like, why would anybody want to approach someone when you have to see these people post videos of you because they don't like the way you approach them,
Yeah.
or you might get caught looking at them.
Right.
It's
We saw that last night with the
yeah, it's crazy, so it's discouraging.
Right.
But I also think that's why chivalry has died a lot today.
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
Guys-
don't get me started.
Guys
on
don't
my
know how to,
chivalry.
they don't know how to act today.
I'm sorry. I love everyone who's watching, and I mean this with a great, truly, but I'm going to say it.
Go ahead.
Whoever thought or whoever was in charge of the women's lib movement, I'd love to meet them because I want to know if today in 2024, while they work 12-hour shifts and then go home and clean their house and cook dinner and take care of their children, if they feel liberated, because I don't feel liberated.
Oh.
And I also believe, and again, I'm not being mean or whatnot. It is where we are.
Fine.
But the other thing is, that's another reason why chivalry has died.
Yeah.
In the path of the women's lib movement to empower women, it has taken men, and whether it certainly could be an excuse, but it has dumbed them down to the core value of what made them men.
Right.
So now the chivalry and be able to be like, approach a woman or hold the door.
Yeah.
Or open the door.
I'm
Or
a big
pull out
fan
the
of those
chair. Like
things.
that
Me
doesn't
too.
even
Yeah.
exist
Me
anymore.
too.
No, it doesn't.
Well, and I have to say, like, sometimes because of the way I believe, I have to check myself because sometimes I'm like, I'm in a male-dominated world where I'm being aggressive all day and I'm a business owner and I'm trying to,
Right.
get ahead and whatnot. And you're in certain situations where this is what it is, where I can see myself sometimes starting to like be a little more aggressive at home or a little more, where you're like, check yourself because you're a female. So.
You don't want to
Yeah.
lose the essence
Right,
of
of
what
what-
makes
of what-
women
Correct.
great.
Of the way I was made and my female characteristics.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
you come home from all that or after a week and you're like, almost like my emotions are shut off. And
Yeah.
I'm like just in the zone working. And, it's like, yeah, but you're still a girl.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like check yourself a little bit because you also don't want to make him feel like he's not masculine. now,
Yeah.
But there's
you know?
a part of that too where it's like when you are in a male dominated presence, right? You do have to, as a woman, you do feel like you have to rise up in your masculinity
Yeah.
to be there
Sure,
with
you're
them.
trying to match.
Right.
Like, because especially if your husband's not there,
Right.
it's different if he's there.
Agreed.
Because when
Yeah.
your husband is there, you don't have to be masculine.
You don't have to be.
You've got him
I
to
totally agree
balance
with
you
that.
and
Yeah,
protect you
100%.
and be that, person for you. But if you're by yourself, you kind of have to come up and show your masculine to protect yourself
Yep.
and to be seen as respected. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so it's kind of but
Ma-
you're right. When you get home, you don't have to play that role anymore.
Right.
It's like a double-edged sword
To
sometimes.
It is.
your
You know,
point, though, I do agree with you, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that if your husband is there,
Yeah.
if your
No,
spouse is there,
yeah.
and I do really believe that, listen, I don't know, like I am a man,
speak
Yeah.
freely.
right? I'm a man, and I'm going to walk around like I'm a man.
Yeah.
If I got to fight, I'm going to fight. I'm going to do all those
Yeah.
things.
Let's hope not.
I consider myself to be a very masculine person. So
Right.
when my wife meets this masculinity, I'm like, okay, I view it as she's rising to meet whatever challenge is there.
Yeah.
Right.
If your spouse is not there, it's a big problem. And I think a lot of men today
Yeah.
need to step their game up.
They
Yeah.
do.
They
100%.
do. Like, what are you being soft?
Right.
Like, you're the man.
Yeah.
Be a man.
The man.
Yeah.
Be the man.
Well, and
Guys have
sometimes
gotten
I think
soft.
women have to also
Soft.
recognize that and I know this is so controversial, but we were made different. Like
Yeah.
we were made different. We were made, I do truly believe we were made to nurture and we were made to
Yes.
do things that,
Yeah.
and you were made to work and do things and whatnot. And we're here and where we're at and it's cool and it's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm a business owner, so I believe in that. And I believe all women, have the freedom to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But
And
I
the
also
capabilities to do whatever
think-
they-
Right. In a relationship, there's a level of respect too that like sometimes when I'm in that mindset, I'm almost disrespecting
Yeah.
who he is
Yeah.
and the roles or the characteristics that he's been
Right.
born with. You
Well,
know?
maybe, and then
Well-
just like not trusting that he can handle that part of it.
Correct.
Well, here's the thing. I mean,
Correct.
listen, I'm very close to my mother. I love women. I have a lot of respect for women. I
Yeah.
think women, as a
Love my
man,
mother.
I could never
Mama, I love you.
survive without women in my life. Even my relationships with my girlfriends,
Nobody could.
I value them. I don't want to say more than the relationships with my guy friends. They're just very different and they
Right.
serve a much different purpose for
Yes.
me. So I covet them. Like I love my friends. And, but I think where the problem is a lot of the time is that you do, when you step into the masculine roles a lot, you do to a degree, you can demasculate a man. So
Right.
I just think that there's nothing wrong with that traditional feminine masculine. You should feel comfortable in your feminine. right?
Yeah.
As men, we need to feel comfortable on our masculine. And we have
100%.
to be very careful to kind of not step into each other's roles. And
Yeah.
not to say that you can't
Right.
or that you shouldn't be able to.
Right,
You
right.
absolutely should be able
Right.
to.
Agreed.
But you also, when you're in a relationship, you want the man to be masculine and do what he's supposed to do.
Right.
And you want to be able to sit back and be the nurturer, you know what I mean? And play that feminine role. And I
Right.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
I think, a lot of women today will get very like, oh, it's almost like an insult, right? Like it's sexist.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And it's, I don't see that it is. Like
Right.
it's different. There are sexist men in the world. Don't get me wrong.
Of course,
Sure.
there's something for everything in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
But it's become too much about that. It's becoming too polarized now where it's like, if you start
Toxic
to
masculinity.
Yeah, and even that term, it's a social
Right.
construct.
No,
Like,
I
what the fuck
know.
is
Trust me.
There's no toxic
not a-
masculinity.
it's not a
That's
thing.
toxic. You're either a toxic person or you're not.
Or you're not.
Right.
Yeah.
What is toxic
Correct.
masculinity?
Agree.
You heard something crazy. So they actually developed that term in prison to evaluate prisoners who were more aggressive and violent. And that's where the term toxic masculinity came from.
Wow. So,
if you
did
look
not
it up,
know that.
isn't that
That's
crazy?
very
And
interesting.
then they took that term, and like I said, it became part of this crazy social construct. And now they use it to
Oh man, I
right?
know, right?
Now you got to watch when you see it. It's wild. That word
Should be up
that
all
has been
night.
around
Yeah.
forever.
Well,
Sure,
no,
sure.
I mean, so again, I went to school for psychology, and I thought that in psychology, right? I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be very transparent. I don't even like psychology. You know that, right? Like I don't even really believe in a lot of it. I believe in the mental health aspect,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's other things where I have different views on it. Whatever. I'm in marketing. It was a good background for marketing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go. Now the first half of it is about, now I went back to school. Originally I went for early childhood education, and I mean, if someone pukes in my class, I'm out. So we knew that was not going to be
Yeah,
a
so that
thing.
wasn't going to fly.
That
That was
wasn't
a
gonna
great
fly.
choice.
Oh,
Yeah.
dumb.
And then I started my spray tan business, which led into the marketing. And then that was really my passion. So I stuck with it. So I went back to school recently. This is not long ago.
Right.
For psychology. And so, first, whatever, half of it, it's history, which like Shane Gillis says early on, that conservative syndrome. I love history, and
Yeah.
I loved learning. And I definitely, even in that environment, the topics that you had to write on, and these are going to elective courses, right? The topics you had to write on were so inflammatory. And maybe some people didn't feel they were. I felt like when your only topics are climate change, racism, globalization, all these hot topics, again, great. If everybody's going to be able to share what they think and back it up, obviously, with reliable sources, great. But that's not the case.
No.
It's a one-way street. Like, you're talking about what is allowed or not. So in my first class, obviously in history, I had to pick a topic, and I wanted to pick a topic that I actually had interest in at all. So it was globalization. I have interest in non-globalization, but still. So I picked this topic, and you have to relate it to a current event. So I'm like, what am I going to do?
Right.
I go, okay, I guess I'm going to do Russia-Ukraine war and NATO, because NATO was the topic.
Right.
And you start researching, and as you research, you're like, what? Like, I didn't know this. And you're reading like cable summaries from the CIA.gov or the Department of State.gov. And you're reading the actual conversations of Russia making an agreement with Bill Clinton in 1993 that we will never expand NATO. And, that this is after the fall of the Soviets. Obviously, Soviet Union was the worst, like, to the extent where if people really knew how terrible the atrocities that occurred under that regime.
Oh, for sure.
I don't even think people understand. And I don't think they understand that that's Marxism, a lot of it. And that is, if you looked at what is happening in today's world, a lot of it, you see characteristics from that type of environment. And I don't think people understand that or see it. But when you start reading, again, you could say, well, how do you trust them? And you don't. But what I do see is in the cables that are on the US website that say they came and said, we want a new partnership for peace. NATO was meant for the Cold War. The Soviet Union's over. Get rid of it. We want to be a part of it. We're going to implement democracy in our country.
Right.
And we're going to try to rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
And our government says, we make an agreement. And then the next day on TV, we will be expanding NATO. And these are things that, like that we don't know. I didn't know this. When I agreed to do the assignment and I chose that, my stance in my first assignment was NATO is great. We need NATO. Russia's invading. Like if we don't, do this, he's going to take over the world. Like that was my stance.
Right.
Then you start researching it. And again, maybe people aren't researching it like this, but
They're
start
not.
to read and you're like, we said we would never enlarge NATO. We just enlarged it. We started at 12 or 13, whatever it is. And we kept making it bigger. We said that we would do a partnership and we didn't. Like we said all these things. And then you step back and you're like, wow, like now NATO's huge. And we said we'd never accept Ukraine. For good, bad, or ugly, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that we made these agreements, our government did, that most people don't know about. So then you see what's happening and you're like, I'm not saying it's justified by any means. I don't agree with war, period, point blank. But you're like, well, what if someone made an agreement with us and then put missiles in Cuba, in Mexico, in Canada, all around us?
Yeah.
What would our country's reaction be?
Maybe going to war.
Right. So that was my first paper. And I was scared because I was like, I'm going to write this, not because I feel this way. I feel the opposite. It's proving what I believe to be true as wrong, right? I mean, real wrong. I was in support of giving all the money to Ukraine in the beginning. Like I believed like we had to stop this. This totally blew my bias out the window because I didn't know any of this. I'm not justifying anything by saying this, but I wrote a paper that at least gave a different perspective.
Right.
Right? Because we only have one perspective and it's our perspective.
Mm.
This perspective was opposite. And thankfully, this teacher gave me a good grade because how are you going to fail me? I have the document showing you. Move forward. And now you're learning under abnormal psychology. You're learning about all different anxiety, OCD, gender dysphoric disorder. You're learning all these things. And then in the class that you're taking at the same time, you're learning that you have to stand up for transitioning and doing all these things where you're like, wait, I'm so confused right now because in this class, which I'm taking at the same time, one class says it's a psychological disorder that needs treatment. And then the other one is saying if someone wants to transition, you need to support it and you need to do this and you need to do that. And you're like, I'm so confused right now. So what is it?
Yeah.
And then as you move further, you're learning about, back to what you said, toxic masculinity and all this, you're learning microaggressions and you're learning all these new terms that have come about. And, anything you say, you're learning sex ed should be taught to preschoolers.
It's crazy.
And all these other things where you're like, what is happening right now? And if you say anything or you question it in any way, immediately you're called out and immediately you're wrong.
Yeah, you're a bigot.
Like I had a teacher literally email me and a professor. And I never said anything that, I haven't even said this much in the class. Like I know that I'm not trying to disrespect anyone.
Yeah.
But of course there's some things where if it's documented, peer-reviewed, reliable source by school standards, I'm going to put it in there. I had one teacher tell me that maybe I should drop the class.
Really?
I had one teacher that put up extra credit. Now, granted, I had an I. Okay. I'm an overachiever. Fine. It's not always a good quality. But she put it out. And I'm not saying that she did this because of what I wrote about. But she put it out. And then all of a sudden it was gone 4 days later. So I emailed and I said, hey, where's the extra credit? She said, there is no extra credit for this course. Okay. I email someone in the course and they send me over the extra credit.
Wow.
And I say, again, if you had said to me, listen, you have an A, or maybe you said, I don't want to, I took it down, but I'm like, I'm in a psychology class and I'm being gaslit.
Yeah.
I'm in psychology and you just did something and told me you didn't do it. That's strange behavior to me.
Yeah.
Like you have doctor next to your name. Like that is strange.
Yeah.
And I said to the girl, well, that's strange. So she emails about it. And the teacher says, oh, you can get up to 20 points when you hand it in.
Now, she said.
To her, no, not to me.
Oh,
to me,
okay.
there was no extra credit.
Wow.
And I was like, again, I'm not saying that it was because of it.
Probably was, though.
But could it have been?
Yeah.
I can't see any other reason. And then, everything is DEI right now in psychology, which is fine. I am all for diversity and I am all for inclusion, truly and honestly. But it's not diversity. Because diversity means that you're a unique individual with your own beliefs, your own thoughts, maybe your own faith, maybe your own culture, and you are accepted. That is diversity.
Mhm.
Diversity is not, we are all the same
Mm.
and we are going to do things so that everybody, like we truly learned in psychology that we no longer base our opinions in the business setting
Mhm.
on your performance. It is now based on effort, which I do think we should give people credit for effort. I think
Right.
effort's important,
It is.
but it's just based basically on that. Like,
But that's like saying,
It's
oh,
a
you have
partic-
effort, but if you fail,
it's okay.
it's okay.
No, it can't be
No.
okay.
Right, but that is what
Everyone
you're being
does not get a
taught.
trophy.
Yeah, but that's what we talked about this
Yeah.
before. It's like getting the participation award.
Correct.
It's like, listen, that's fine. Like you get an E for effort, great, whatever, but you need to keep doing better.
right.
Like I appreciate the effort. That's great. Now put in more effort. Now you got to keep moving forward.
But that is not,
Yeah.
You need to progress.
Yeah,
but that is
Failure
not
is
what's
great,
being
but
taught.
it's not being taught.
but that's
So-
crazy.
And if
And
we-
it's scary because I think like when we have children, these are the people that are going to be my children's pediatrician and my children's teachers. And, again, I guess because I'm 36 and I'm just seeing things the last 5 years where I'm like shaking my head, like what's going on?
Yeah.
I think I just never looked at it or cared before. But now I'm sitting back and I'm like, even the term microaggression, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but
Right.
by nature, aggression means that you know what you're doing. It's a conscious act. It's
Yeah.
not like the true definition is you're conscious of it.
Right.
I'm being told that and this was flat out said, that as a European American, we have microaggressions that other people don't. And it's things that we don't even know that we're doing. I'm fine, but don't call it microaggression.
Right.
Because aggression by nature means you're aware, not that you're unconscious of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let's call it something that defines it more clearly.
I would argue the fact if I'm being aggressive, I am being a competitive masculine man.
If
I'm-
you're
That's a-
out,
If
you're not hired.
well, no,
You're
if I-
fired.
You're
If I'm,
fired.
if
You're
I'm competing
fired.
in something, if I work in a workplace and I have a task and I am being aggressive to complete the task and I'm not hurting everybody, I'm not negatively affecting
Right.
my team or the business or anything like that. I'm just being a man. I'm just being a warm-blooded American trying to complete a task. That is not aggression. That is me going above and beyond to try to complete
Right.
a task.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's kind of the skew of what we were talking about earlier, like the difference between being a man or aggressive or meeting these certain levels. It's
Right.
like, you're telling me like not to do that which is inherently ingrained in me.
Right.
Right.
We're the only species on planet Earth that like has this construct.
Right.
Every other species has male, female, and they all act accordingly.
Right.
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? It's like crazy.
Well,
It's crazy.
you're talking about it. You want to have kids. So we've talked about this before with the transitioning. So, I mean, the crazy thing is like you live in the tri-state area, right? So for me, the biggest problem that I have, and you talked about diversity, but I don't like currently like just the constant catering to the people who are transitioning. Like you have to make sure everybody's comfortable, right? And they're constantly trying to force things down our throat now, right? They're starting to teach it in schools. They're doing all this crazy stuff. And instead of including everybody, make sure everyone feels comfortable, they're doing everything geared toward making one demographic of people feel comfortable now. Like, do you feel that way? Do you see that
I do.
a lot now?
And it's so hard for me because I am a perspective taker, right? Like, what is the outcome of transitioning? First of all, if you can't drink, get a tattoo, serve in the war, carry a gun, do any of those things below the age of 18 or 21,
Yeah.
then I think that should be the age of consent.
Yeah.
Informed consent by
Yeah.
an adult. You
Yeah.
believe it, you're an adult, you could make that decision. You could, at that age, you could vote. You can't even vote before 18.
Yeah.
So I believe that, and as a Christian, there's freedom. And that's the way I see it. As a Christian, God gives me the freedom to do what I want. Now, whether the consequences are good or bad, that's whatever it's going to be. I believe people have the freedom to live the life they want,
Yeah.
but with information and informed and at an age where you're not going to regret it. When I was young, I got tattoos every year.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Ask me today,
Right.
I'd get them removed. I don't like
Yes.
them anymore. Some for what they are and some for where they are. But I changed my mind. And guess what? I can't. They're stuck.
Yeah.
Laser's
Yeah.
not going to fully remove them. They're stuck. So I look at it with what you're saying as as an 8-year-old, if you're a parent and I say to you, hey, Johnny wants to buy a pack of cigarettes, what's your answer going to be?
Of course, no.
Okay. Johnny wants a gun.
No.
All right. Johnny wants to go to the bar with me.
Yeah.
No? Johnny wants a tattoo. Johnny wants a vagina.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No, but
Well,
it's going to be okay.
you're right.
Well, that is, and again, I'm not saying, I don't think that parents are doing it from an ill place. I
Agreed.
think they love their
definitely-
children.
definitely not.
Agreed.
Oh, of
And
I
course.
couldn't agree more.
I don't think that it's a bad, and I truly, truly believe that. I don't think that them wanting to help their children and their children are going through whatever they're going through. I can't say that I understand because I don't. And that's
Right.
where I have empathy is I can't tell you something I don't know. But I will say, what if it's a phase?
yeah.
Or
Right.
what if it's a trend right now?
Yeah.
What if
Right.
it's now trending?
Well, that's why it's important to the parent to go, okay, I need to see this out for this child so that I don't make a choice that they're going to hate me for later.
Well,
You know what I mean?
right. And we just read the statistics.
Oh, it's
Right.
crazy.
And-
Because it's like, kids are kids. Like I was a tomboy until I was 12, until I was wearing my brother's t-shirts and, baggy jeans, and I didn't like makeup, and I wanted to be outside and running around in the mud. Like but at 12, all of a sudden, I want
Things
makeup. I want
change.
lipstick.
Yeah.
I want eyeliner. You change.
You do.
change through your entire childhood and your preteen and your, later teen years. You're changing so much until you're like 30, really. But like
You're still changing.
technically,
forever.
like
But yeah.
that's like the biggest impact. Your hormones are changing. Everything's changing. You don't know at 8 years old who you really are or
Right.
want to be.
Well, and to
Oh.
your point, it's it's a lot. It's everywhere. So
It
to your
is.
point, there's another thing of, listen, I'm not going to go out there and push all my views, which people don't like,
Right.
on you. Like I'm never going to go hit you over the head with the Bible and say, you got to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not pushing or forcing. Just live your life
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
you
Right.
want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know what I mean? But it's just,
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
And I would make one more point, and I do believe this, that if there is only a couple things that you can never tell another human being, it's that you can never tell somebody how to raise their kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
You cannot. Right.
Yeah.
So this is a very fine line topic to be like, well, just so you know, if you're asking me a question on what my opinion is about it, I'm going
Right.
to tell you. Now, I'm not telling you what you
Correct.
should do or should
Correct.
not do for your child.
Right.
That is your child. You
Yeah.
are the adult. You brought them into the world. You do you. But if you're gonna ask me how I feel about it, I'm gonna tell you that this might not be the best option long term in our society.
Yeah.
Just like what we were talking about earlier with these social norms and constructs constantly changing. It's like, is it the question is just posed, is it beneficial or is it doing good or is it doing harm? And then you have to take a step back to look at it and say, okay, if I fast forward through a generation or two or three, is this going to be the thing that is going to move humanity in the right direction or is it going to bring us back?
Well, here's a few
Rob,
things.
well-
The UK is already rolling it back because their studies found that it
Of
wasn't
course.
helpful. But
How could
there's
you-
another big point, and I say this, and it's crazy, but I heard someone else say it. If everybody decided to follow this trend, all of us,
Yeah.
oh, let's say half the country or half the world decides to follow and the other half doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's a trend. I believe there are really people that truly want to transition
Yeah,
and they feel
course.
they're doing it. Whatever my beliefs on the backgrounds are doesn't matter. I believe that there is a percentage of the population, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But say that the rest of the percentage, it's just a phase or a trend. Okay. Now say you had two halves of the country and you split halves that are not and halves that are.
Right.
In 100 years, only half the country is living.
Of course.
The rest has died
Yeah.
because there's no procreation. There's no
True.
people left. So again, when you think about it in that aspect, what does it do for our civilization and our society? And why is something, again, I'm not saying that you're outlawing it,
Yeah, you're
but
fine.
why are you pushing it so much to the point where I've spoken to people in our community with kids in high school where they'll say half of their class go by they now.
That's insane.
And again, I'm not judging or saying anything about it. I'm saying, why is something that could collapse, if you look at it in the way I just said, can collapse a civilization or a society?
Yeah.
be pushed so.
Certainly takes you down a rabbit hole.
It does, but here's the biggest thing: you can't be so. And listen, not against you, but at some point, it's kind of like, listen, you don't have to be judgy or dislike somebody for anything that they do.
No,
And listen,
not
your
at
life
all.
choices are yours. You live how you want to live. Be comfortable in your own skin.
Correct.
But at some point, there needs to be a stand taken to a degree where it's like, okay, listen, I respect you and what you want to do, but enough is enough.
Right.
Now you're pushing it down my throat. Now my kids are going to be susceptible to it. I have to enroll them in schools where you're putting,
Or I have to put them in homeschool and raise them myself.
where you're putting fucking litter boxes in the classrooms because you got people coming in identifying as cats. Listen, I hate to be harsh about it, but at the end of the day, that's the reality. And I don't know about you, but if I have a kid, I'm not exposing my kid to it. And
Right.
I don't care.
Well, it's confusion.
It's confusion.
It's confusion.
Like
Yes.
you have to treat the problem. You need to encourage people to help themselves and not keep enabling them.
Right.
Because it's getting to a point now where it's becoming an agenda and it's getting pushed down everyone's throat. And
And I think kids are confused.
they're very confused.
How do they know? Like, this is what it's all we're talking about. So how do I know? Well, maybe I know someone personally where it's like, my kid came home and said, maybe I like girls, maybe I like boys, I don't know. Or maybe I'm supposed to be this, maybe I don't know. How
Yeah.
could you know?
Yeah. And you can't say that kids, I mean, you're more vulnerable as a kid than you
Of
ever
course.
are. You're more impressionable as a kid than you
Yes,
ever
you're
will
very-
be.
very
So if
malleable.
your kid goes to school and, Johnny over here is using a kitty litter box to go potty over in the corner.
Yeah.
You're going to come
be like,
home
maybe
and
I
think,
should do that.
oh, I need to, if Johnny's doing it, then that means
Right.
it's okay. That means it's normal.
Well,
Because
yeah.
that's what you're
well-
seeing. That's you now, and the more you expose anyone to something, the more normal it becomes.
Yeah,
Right.
of course. And then the thing
Right?
with parenting though. So, and as far as parenting goes, like, yes, you can't tell someone how to raise their
No.
kid.
No.
But let me tell you something. Back when we were younger, there were all types of reasons they took kids from parents.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you may not be able to have someone tell you how to raise your kid,
But
but you
don't take
need
them
to
from
know
you.
the difference between right
Interesting
and
point.
wrong.
Yeah.
And if you are
Very
allowing
interesting
your
point.
14-year-old child to castrate himself, you should not have that child.
But you
I'm
know
sorry.
that the children are being taken away for opposite reasons.
Yeah, I
There's
do,
a guy in Canada
which
I've
is
been
insane.
following
Oh.
who did not want his wife, they're divorced, to transition their child.
Right.
And he got his parental rights taken.
That's insane. See that right? How would you feel if someone came into your house and took your kid for someone? Is that not fucking insanity?
In my opinion, and this is just my own viewpoint, but it is in fact taking a stand essentially is just me voicing my opinion, whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
But I will say, the fuck you're taking my kid from
Right?
me. Get out of here.
I
Are
will
you
die
kidding?
I
before
will
you take my
murder
kid.
you.
Well, and the other
nail me to the cross. Like,
Yeah, it's
seriously,
not
I would
happening. I
kill-
will fight tooth
Yeah.
and nail.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
my child.
Yeah.
That is my responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I am I have the responsibility as a man and as a father
Yeah.
to protect however I see fit. And you're going to tell me that just because I don't conform to whatever norm
Yeah.
that you say
well, again,
is
just
norm,
because you're waiting
I'm
until they're
sorry,
18
I
to make their
can't.
own choice. Forget that you even have a say. You're
Yeah.
just waiting.
Yeah.
You know
Well-
what? I'm waiting. I'm
not even
waiting
saying
until
you're
my
against it
child is
necessarily.
18 and then they could do what they want
Correct.
to do as an adult.
Absolutely.
I am not saying I'm for or against is completely irrelevant.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you're going to, but if it's before, and I think it's a very good rule of thumb to say 18. If
Yeah.
it's before that time, I pay for them.
Right.
Yeah.
I feed
Yeah.
them. I put
Yeah.
a roof over their head. I buy them clothes. I enroll them into sports. I teach them to a certain degree, to a certain
Absolutely.
age.
Yeah.
You
Questionable
cannot
now.
tell me that you're going to just go ahead and take my what I've earned, my
Yeah.
responsibility away from me.
Right.
That responsibility was bestowed upon me to do what I think is best to give my child the best shot at being successful in living in this world.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Well,
No,
and
If
I'm
they
not-
decide when they're 18, hey, listen, I'm gay. Hey, good
Yeah.
on you.
Right.
Let's meet them.
That's
But,
the
or
Right.
let's meet her. But
Love you
other
just
than
the
that,
same.
other
Right.
than that, like, till that day.
Right.
This is the rules.
100%.
I make
But
the rules around it.
as far as the people go that would actually come into your house to take your child,
Oh, no.
it's kind of like, how misguided are you?
Right.
Right. And what kind of precedent are you setting
Yeah.
to take a child
I'd
from
have to
their
quit.
parents?
I'd have to quit my
Right,
job.
because you're not okay with them waiting until the age of 18
Yeah.
to basically physically harm themselves. You're gonna
Right.
because you won't allow them to have a surgery to change their gender at 14 years old.
They'll do that.
And
but
that's
things
the
they won't
precedent
take
you're
them
gonna
away
say.
for.
I was
Right,
just
you're
going to
gonna
say the
throw-
same thing.
You're going to throw a child into what would be the foster care system, which is horrible in our country, I might add.
Paris Hilton just talked on it.
For
Congress.
what? For what reason?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding? I can't get over how misguided it is that someone could even get themselves into that.
But I want to
process.
know why.
Well,
Why they want to do
You're not
that?
going to know why.
Oh, you'll never. How could we know why? There's no rational reason for it.
No, I think that I know again.
Here she goes.
I'm rabbit hole, right?
Yeah,
I was going to show
you're
you
good.
before. I have a whole list of all operations that were done in America that if the world read, which it's there,
Probably shocking.
they would be just, they wouldn't even believe it. Like, because it's hard. It's hard to stomach because I still can't believe it. Even though I read it, I still can't believe it. Like, wait, this really happened? People really do
Right.
this? We really didn't know?
Right.
Like, this really goes on, behind the scenes and nobody knows. Like, it's hard to stomach and believe. But when I look at a topic like this, to say, well, it's just no reason, like they're just crazy. No, I don't believe that. Like, there's
there's a
got
reason.
to be
Yeah,
a
there's a
reason. Why?
But what is it?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
could call it a
exactly.
taboo word. You could call it a taboo word like
I don't know.
agenda or
But
whatever
sometimes-
whatever conspiracy theorists around the world says what it is, but there's motive. You can't say there's not motive.
Well,
What do you think
sometimes
it
I
is?
look at
Population
weird.
control?
So
That
that's
is-
sometimes I think
that is a
of
very
like,
valid argument.
else could it be?
Well, let's think of
That's a
China.
very valid argument.
Yeah.
let's think of China. So
I
what
would-
did they do?
I would say
Yeah.
to people, prove to me it's not.
Right.
Prove to me it's not population.
Well, no, it
control.
might not be, but there's something. And when you look at history or other countries, like think of China had a one-child policy, right? So
Mhm.
if you got pregnant, it was forced abortion.
Right.
You had, you were
I
not.
know. Yes, I'll tell you a story about that.
Right, and I
But
get
they would
it.
drill the hammers.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The consequences were
Is
consequencing.
that
Right.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
is that not population control?
No,
It
that
is population
and
control.
that- but
Absolutely
that's what I'm
is.
saying.
That's what I'm
Yeah, it
is.
Right.
to our point, it's like, well, if we have to say, is it population control? I would say, again,
Well, what
prove to
else-
me it's not.
What else is it? That's what, like you
Well-
think about it. It's like what I said before. That is a guaranteed way.
Yeah.
I understand why people want to control the population because they're like, well, how are we going to feed them and how are we going to do
Right.
this? But you know what? It's just not informed.
Yeah.
Is the other part. Like China, disagree. Totally. Like you made people kill their babies
Yeah.
and you know what I
Right.
mean? But people also knew this was going to happen if I had a second child. Like they were informed
Right.
about
Of
it.
course.
If that, and again,
Yeah,
we're
there's
throwing
responsibility
things
there,
out
sure.
there that may not be true. So disclaimer. If that was in fact the case, you're doing it in a way that nobody knows you're doing it. Unless studies really show, like people really start sounding the alarms.
It'd be like the Hunger Games. That's what our society would
Listen.
look like.
We're already there.
I've already thought about
Yeah,
this.
I was going to say we're already there.
I would be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if at some point in our existence we got to that point.
It's wild to
We
think
used to do
about,
it.
though.
The Roman Empire used to put people in
The
an
Col-
arena
yeah, the
and let
Colosseum.
them
Yeah, I
and kill
know.
them. Well, what's the difference?
I mean, just on the topic, really quick, I'm going to say it because I heard it and it shocked me when I arrived in Florida. How desensitized we are to things. Like, let's take a less inflammatory situation that I think everybody could get on board with. I don't think there's anybody that can't get on board with this one. When we arrived in Florida, he didn't hear it, but over the loudspeakers, I heard human trafficking
Mhm.
is Florida's the top third place for it? they
Yeah,
said?
something like that.
So
yeah.
that was on the loudspeaker, right? And of course, my ears perked up like, whoa, that's scary. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
First of all,
She's like, Devin, where are you?
yeah,
Oh, I
seriously.
thought that too. I was like, you're 4 feet tall. They might think you're a kid.
But it's
You
not
need to
just
stand
kids.
on
It's
them.
also
It's women.
the-
It's everybody.
It's everybody.
Yeah,
They
it's
said
everybody.
minority groups. They said children. They said women. Everybody, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, we never really learned about. Like, I never, ever knew human trafficking
Know
was a
nothing about
was
it.
a big deal. I
Didn't even know what it was.
right.
15,000 women and children every year.
I
in
mean,
the
I
US.
guess when you talk about it, slavery was human trafficking.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that's
It was.
that really was like that was human trafficking. So, but we never were taught about it that way, right? So in my mind, human trafficking, I didn't know about it really, right? Except in the form of slavery. I knew that to be. We just called it slavery instead of human trafficking.
Right.
So I hear this over the loudspeaker and I'm like, wow, they're announcing it. Like, this is a big deal. And then my head goes to Jeffrey Epstein, human trafficked.
Yeah.
We don't know anyone that did it with him. We're so desensitized. The trial was over, closed. Nobody said another word.
Yeah.
Wow, Diddy just got in trouble for sex trafficking.
Yeah.
So we saw a video of him beating.
Beating the shit out of his girlfriend.
Who's-
I know.
So pretty. Side note.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly,
He
but
was
that,
doing it?
I don't think they really associated the human trafficking
That was
part.
like a child.
Right.
I forgot what they charged him with.
But I
child
think now it's
misconduct
coming
or
out a
something.
little bit more that he was involved. But Diddy is a great case. Like you hear that he's involved in trafficking, or Epstein is the greatest case. We all heard that he was human trafficking, sex trafficking.
Right.
He was with minors. We all heard that there was a log, there was this, there was that. So we know there's people out there.
Right.
We know that one is dead and the other one, I don't know if she's in witness protection in jail. I don't even know what happened.
Yeah,
I don't
what
even
did
know
happen to her?
I don't even know the outcome.
I don't either.
But here's my point. Nobody cares.
People don't even
Just move
flinch
on.
at it.
They don't
I know.
flinch.
Nobody cares. They don't think about
If it's not in your face.
right. They're not
Yeah.
like that's where I'm sitting back and I'm like, you're outraged about a parent maybe saying no to their child transitioning and wanting to wait till they're 18.
Right.
But you're not outraged that little children are being kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking,
Right.
or women or minorities are becoming slaves again. Like, you're not outraged. Like, you just forgot about it, but you're outraged about the left and the right can't get along and this one wants to do that and all of these things. But you're cool with
You know
the
why, right?
hundreds of people.
Because the media doesn't cover it.
Oh, no, I know that.
Everything that we care about is based on what the media is telling
Yeah.
us.
But even people,
What you don't know, you can't really care about.
no, it's true. But even people that I know do know.
I mean,
Don't
everyone knows, but
Yeah.
it's not in their face
not in
every
their
day.
face.
Right. Or they haven't experienced it personally, or no one they know has
Right.
experienced
It
it
is-
personally,
I
so
hope
they're
that
out of
nobody-
Think
sight, out of
about the
mind.
things
Hope
that we
that
care
nobody
about the
experiences.
most. They're in our face every day on the
Right.
media.
But that is in our face because we all get behind. Slavery was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
despicable. It was awful. Well, it's still happening
I've
right now.
never heard a single, I've never watched the news and heard them talk about sex trafficking ever. I've never
Yeah,
seen it.
that's why when I arrived in Florida, I'm like listening in the speakers and I'm like, the top
Yeah, you
third
hear it at the
place.
airport.
Yeah,
I don't see it on the
look at what-
news.
No, look at what they do. Like, look, we said we all know Jeffrey Epstein, right?
Yeah, that's
but
it.
what about like they said, there's logs of people, right? Where
Yeah,
are all the
that's
people
what I'm
standing
saying.
trial? Where are their names? Who are they? How do we even know
That's
that
what
they
I'm
were
saying.
they
They're
were
still
arrested?
out there.
You know,
They're still there. We know
It's
they're not
wild.
arrested unless they were secretly arrested, like the conspiracists say. Like they're secretly. Otherwise, all I know is just one.
right?
Well,
I know,
two.
We know Prince Charles was there, King
Andrew, Prince Andrew.
Andrew,
yeah.
right?
Right. And he's fine. He got
Yeah.
all his royalty put back on him. And again, my whole point by saying this is, how are we so desensitized that we're not all as Americans and you're anyone?
humans.
Well, take
It's
any
kinda
country.
like-
Right.
It's kind of like this. When you live in a privileged country like we do, you don't understand the depths of things like
That's
this.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Because you don't see it.
First world problems.
Correct.
We care about
it's
first
like,
world problems.
For example, in our country, we hear about it. Let's just say we hear about a hurricane that destroys another country. Oh, that's sad. That's terrible. That's awful. I hate that for them.
Yep, move on.
If you were there in that
be
hurricane,
devastated.
watching everything around you get destroyed,
You'd be
it's
devastated.
a totally different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
You're passionate because
Right.
you lived it.
Right.
You saw it. You understand it. But when you live in a country like ours where we do not see these things, they keep everything from us.
But we do,
Even
but
if
we
they're
know
happening
that.
next door, we might hear about it. We don't see it. We don't understand
Yeah,
it.
I
You
get
don't.
that.
You get what I'm saying? I'm not
Yes.
saying that it
No,
makes it
I
okay.
totally understand what you're saying,
I'm
but
just
we
like-
know this happened. Everybody does. The news media reported. There's documentaries on Netflix. We all know it happened.
We become passionate about the things that we see with our eyes,
Yes.
not what we hear. Unfortunately,
I've never seen
Unfortunately.
human trafficking or slavery. I've never seen it in my time, but I'll tell you right now, I'm appalled and
Oh, yeah.
disgusted, and I just
Yeah.
don't.
yes,
I can't fathom why we just
it's
swiped
sick.
it under the rug and said, "Oh,
It's sick and it
That's
doesn't
over.
make sense, but we are so distracted. This is America. Everything in media is meant to keep us from thinking about the important issues.
Mhm.
Like even all the war stuff that's going on in our world right now. I haven't heard hardly anything about it except from podcasts. Maybe.
right."
Right.
Like,
Like
what
I
about
know
people
nothing
dying?
about it. I couldn't
Right.
tell you anything. And I live here. And if I lived in any other country, I'd probably know everything I could possibly know about it. But it's like we have movies, we have podcasters, we have influencers, we
Right.
have celebrities, we have events, we have huge, great, amazing concerts. We have everything is in our face entertaining us constantly.
Literally, like
We have
Rome.
TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Reels. We're like thinking about all the good fun stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of people just don't care if it doesn't affect them.
it's exactly the
They
point.
just don't.
Okay.
That's exactly
And
the
that's-
point. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but people just want to live their lives and they don't want to be depressed and discouraged. And
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with
But
it.
we do care because we care about slavery. We care that slavery happened and
care.
that we were mistreated.
We do, but I think a lot of people care because of the general optics of it and how they would look if they didn't
Right.
show that they care about
Right.
something. Like
There's a
today,
difference
at least,
between sympathy
I'm not
and
saying
empathy.
back then, right? Today, I'm saying.
We all
sympathy-
sympathize
do
with
you
sympathy.
really
and
like
empathy.
most of these people you hear talk about slavery, like the politicians, all? Do you really think that these guys go home at night or women go home at night and really think,
Nope.
oh man,
Well,
what
if
a
they did,
atrocity.
they would stop human trafficking and they'd make it a
Right.
big deal.
Right.
It's
Right.
still
So my
happening
point-
today.
Right. So my point is, there's a difference between someone showing that they care
Yes.
and someone who genuinely
actually
cares.
genuinely feels
Right. The
like,
people.
sex trafficking, I sympathize with it because it's disgusting, it's immoral,
Right.
it's wrong, it's awful. But if it happened to me or my daughter, it would be a whole completely different level of empathy.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
An experience. You would
Right.
have an experiential reality to you.
Yeah.
It would be.
And it's not me saying that this is okay and that it should be that way. I'm just saying that's the way the world is,
Sure.
unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
especially in this
yeah.
country.
Well, I mean, for me,
But that's why people
That's
like
why.
you
That's
with
why
a
you turn
platform
8 feet tall. Kid.
have to speak up louder, because the louder you get, the more it's heard.
That's
People
why,
with influence have to speak up.
You have
Yep.
to. What matters to you? We all have our own lane. We all have our own path that we have to take. We all have our reason that God put us here. And if that is if you're passionate about that, that's your lane. That's what you speak
I
out
got,
about.
I got a lot of lanes.
You
That would
got a
not
lot-
be
yeah,
right.
right.
Well, okay, so maybe
But-
pick one. You can pick one, but you
but-
know what I'm saying.
just start with one.
No,
and
I
then
mean,
we'll go to
again,
another.
no, again, I'm just saying, like, I just can't understand where we started. You're upset that a parent doesn't want to use
Yeah.
their God-given right as a parent to not, to say no
We
for
should
right
learn
now.
more about this.
Or the
for
fact
right
that
now.
That's
But
that kind
we're
of thing
okay
is
with
at
your
the forefront.
child might get
Yeah.
kidnapped, trafficked.
And maybe it's not that they're okay with it,
We're
but it's not in their
desensitized.
face.
Right.
you
It's
know?
not in their face. They're just,
It is not the narrative that which is put out in our
Yeah.
world.
Well, I assure you, if the government enforced a tax on people to control sex trafficking and prosecute more cases, people would take a bigger interest in it for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, without question.
I'm
Well,
I would rather
serious.
get taxed for that
I'm
than
just
my income.
saying.
Me too.
It's the
Just
truth. though.
saying.
Amen.
Well,
Yeah.
no, and the other thing is that we're just so upside down right now.
Yeah,
and
we
I
are.
think that that's where the left and right should come together because
Yes.
the truth is we're all living in this same craziness. The truth is we all care about health and people, living long and being
Yeah.
informed and making good decisions and having no regrets. And I feel like we lose each other
Yeah.
when we don't look at what we do have in common. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like you said earlier with a husband and wife against, things instead of against each other. Like as Americans, there's so many big things going on. Like you even see it with food. Like you see
Yeah.
all the people
Yeah.
ringing the bells that are like, I worked for the food industry and I worked for Big Pharma and I worked for this and this is what happened. Like,
We could talk about tampons.
did you see
Yeah.
the metal in them? Did you
Oh,
just see it came out?
Arsenic, lead,
Yep.
metals.
Right. So we see all this. My dad, he's 77 and he
Right.
always says, Laur, well, if this was so bad, how come I'm not affected? And I'm like, well, you never saw Billions? Where
Great show.
Bobby
Great show.
Axelrod goes
Great
in and,
show.
and you see how, let's just use a fake name. We'll call it whatever. Miss Susie. Well, we won't say any names. The shareholders came in and the board had a meeting and they decided they wanted to make more money. So they changed the ingredients 40 years after it was made.
Right.
You didn't grow up on it. Maybe
Yeah.
you eat it here and there now, but these people grow up on it.
Well.
And he'll be like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, did you know that Gatorade, what's in Gatorade is outlawed in all the other countries?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Ritz crackers in some countries, Ritz crackers.
Oh.
If you go to, so have you been to like Italy or anywhere?
Yeah. I lived in Italy for 3
Right.
months.
If you eat ketchup in Italy, it tastes completely different.
Yeah,
It's like
so much
sweet
different.
because there's 3 ingredients: tomatoes, a
Right.
little bit of sugar, real sugar, not
Yep.
fake sugar, and vinegar or water
Yeah,
or
it's like
something.
vinegar.
It tastes, it's
Yeah.
gross, actually. I'm not going to lie. Like the
I
the
know,
Greek
it's-
stuff
it's
tastes
not,
better.
It's not Heinz ketchup
Right,
by
it's
any
definitely-
stretch.
But my point about it is, I say it all the time, and my dad's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. So he called me a few weeks back, and he was like, I wanted to see if you were lying. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I went to Javla, and I saw these Italian candies. And he goes, so I picked them up to read the ingredients. And he was like, and I was shocked. They were colored with turmeric
No.
and all these other natural things. And I said, because America and maybe some other countries are the only countries that allow their citizens to eat poison.
Right.
Mhm.
Like legit, like I'm not saying this to be a
Mhm.
conspiracy theorist or, like cigarettes were bad. Everyone knew they were bad.
Yeah.
And they still said they were fine
Yeah, well-
until
Yeah.
they couldn't avoid it anymore.
Right,
Because
of
money.
course.
Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why 8-year-olds are obese at 8 years old. Like there's a reason.
Oh,
It's-
don't even get into that now. It's with the fucking.
We'll have to come back. For that
Oh,
one.
it's just crazy. It's like,
but
come
it's
on.
the truth.
It is, but the biggest thing with that is like, listen, we have people in this country. We like lead the world in obesity, and now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
everybody. Well, now the crazy thing is, there's everybody's all about like
Mm.
you're fat shaming someone. If you say it's like, listen, it's an unhealthy lifestyle. You can be comfortable in your own body, but
You
if
should
you're
be
obese,
comfortable in
you
your own
should.
body, but you
Yeah,
should
because you're
also
gonna be
want to
shape.
live long.
Yeah, but don't promote the lifestyle. Like you don't need to body shame someone, but you don't need to promote their lifestyle
Agreed.
and say you're body shaming them. If you say, oh, well, it's unhealthy to live this way. It's not body shaming. It is unhealthy to live that way. You're not going to live a long life.
Yeah.
And you should not be promoting those habits on anybody.
Right.
The risk of I don't know, every disease goes up with obesity.
Seriously.
It's like these are facts. These are
Yeah.
statistical data that we have over our entire life.
Absolutely.
But I say this from a
Let's not
place
ignore
of
that.
sadness
No, it's
because people don't know.
You're right.
That's
They
why this
don't.
platform is here, and more platforms like this, because there are. I do believe that there are inquiring minds are out there, and the more, and like I said, I'm a consumer. Like you said, I'm a consumer of TikTok. I love going on TikTok, scrolling, doing
Right.
all that. Right. But
It's outlawed in their own country now, but not
Yeah,
here.
you're right. It's
You'd be
crazy.
surprised that my algorithm
It's
has
true.
nothing to do with things like making my wife gag on the internet.
Right.
They don't. It has things like substance. Like I said, substance. So I'm scrolling, I'm reading. The more I see people in platforms like this having conversations, whether like-minded or not,
Right.
has to move the needle somewhere.
You hope
it
so.
has to.
Yeah.
And this is the gift of social media. This is
Yeah,
this is
but-
one of the good things why it exists. Is
Yeah.
here's your voice.
I think
it out
that it will be dependent upon what the government decides they want shared and whatnot. I think that's going to be moving forward. I think that, we saw the lawsuits with censorship and we saw people that, got demonetized and deplatformed and whatnot. And again, I think moving forward, like I'm starting to believe, it's crazy, I'm going to say this at the age of 36, I'm like questioning I don't want to question everything
Right.
now. And that's one of the things. There are probably really, really good things that are important that now people are going to question because it slipped out that you lied about this and you lied about that. Now I'm confused on everything. How do I know if I could trust you? But
Mhm.
now I sit back and I'm like, so how much of what I learned in school is real?
Yeah.
Right.
How much of history is true?
Right.
It's good
What's
that you
the
question
real
things.
story?
you
It's
have
good,
to.
though. You have to question.
have
it.
to
It's the
question.
You
people-
say it's good, but
It is though, because it's the people in this world who question things. They're going to keep the government in check always.
Keep the
If
world in
people,
check.
the world, if everybody just stopped questioning things, forget it. It would be anarchy.
But
yeah.
We would live under the rule of our government 100%.
But
there
I
would
don't
be no
believe-
right saying
They
that.
have a word for that. It's on the tip of my tongue.
dictatorship.
Oh,
Dic-
that could be
Communism.
one.
Communism.
That could be
It's
Communism,
communism.
Marxism.
There's a couple
so-
words in there that I think that we've discovered that,
Yeah,
But I think
that don't work
they
ever
don't.
throughout the entire existence of human history.
But
Yeah.
I don't think questioning things,
Let
unfortunately.
Germany be a lesson. It's just fucking crazy.
Let a lot of
I think the problem though is it doesn't matter who questions how big of a podcast you are or what you question in the end. The government's not listening. There's going to be no revolution, number
well,
one.
that's very negative.
I
Oh,
know. I'm sorry. Listen, I don't mean to say this to be a Debbie Downer. I mean to say this
It's all right.
to say like, I think that there's bigger powers that be than just our United States government.
I would say this. I would just say this because the generation that is in power right now, whatever you want to call them, this age bracket of people that are in power, eventually they will be no more. And the people that listen, the youth, for example, that listen to substance like this,
They're not listening
Will-
to this.
they listen, somebody's listening.
Yeah, our generation.
And then you are in charge of educating your children
Right.
and their children. And it's reverberation throughout life and throughout generations.
Yeah.
That's the hope of doing something.
You have to keep passing it down.
You have to.
As parents, if you don't pass it down, then you're failing your
Agree.
kids.
Yeah.
I do agree, but you could see some parents today that are passing it down and their kids are learning opposite in
Yeah,
school. And
'cause
now
those-
that's what
Yeah,
it is.
Those parents were all given a trophy, and not
Right.
everybody gets a trophy.
You came in last place. Here's a ribbon.
Yeah, here's a ribbon.
I don't know. I just think that we
wait
give.
till you see. We'll talk years later when we have kids and a son or daughter. Like, oh, so how's that trophy thing going? Well, my kid, I threw out every one of their third place trophies because it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Well, you're a witness to this. My father, no matter how much my business grows, will still say, you know, did you get any new clients this week? You know, you need more.
Right.
You need more.
That.
Progress.
Like I said something, I was like, don't be a baby. Like he has been a witness to it. Like, again, yeah, he'll say good job at something if you did something good, but it's very short-lived. Like, it's like a good job, but you could still do better. And I think that is one thing that we don't really tell people anymore.
No.
Like we settle. We settle now.
We're lacking in that now.
Don't settle.
All right, everybody, that's it. It's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. As usual, please continue to give us your feedback. You can check us out on YouTube and IG at notfornothing.podcast. Be sure to check out these two on IG. You can check out Lauren at Lauryn D'Agostino, and you can check out her husband, Devin, on IG at Big Daddy D Murph. You can also check them both out on TikTok at Big Dad Little Laur. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you. See you next week.